Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the latest edition of Terrace Talk. Of course, a positive start for Norwich City to this season. A great 3-1 win on Sunday afternoon against Millwall. Huddersfield, the next opponents. And with that, delighted to be joined by Tom from a Huddersfield podcast. Tom, just want to start off, just want to plug your podcast and where Huddersfield and Norwich fans can find the content.
So we're the And He Takes That Chance podcast. We're all over social media, Spotify, YouTube, that kind of thing. Just do match summaries, and then we have the odd kind of special guest, normally an ex-Town player and stuff on there, and do some special podcasts and stuff. But yeah, if you fancy delving into a bit of Town history, also listening to us moan about losing a lot, then it's the perfect podcast for you.
Yeah, good stuff. So there you go. You can head over there and find all that content. Tom, really appreciate your time this morning. Just going to start and take you back to the end of last season, really. It was sort of a difficult season at the start of the campaign. Looked like maybe it was heading one way, and that would be League One football. You appoint Neil Warnock in February, 28 points at that point, 4 points adrift of the safety zone. You survive in 18th on 53 points. I mean, what a miraculous turnaround at the end of last season. What was that like, I suppose, to be a Huddersfield Town fan at that point?
It was the only good point of the whole season. I mean, it was such a long season, and it was just really nice to have that spell at the end that went so quickly, because it was exciting again. There was a really good feeling around it with Warnock. I think a lot of Town fans kind of resigned to I think the club kind of did well in getting him in a sense. It's like, oh, if we go down, no one's going to be that disappointed because we got Warnock because he's a Town legend. He came back for a bit. If we know that at least they'd have been given their all, and thankfully it paid off. It worked really well. He's turned a bunch of players who, like, he didn't have a window to bring anyone in, and he's turned that bunch of players who were on an absolute terrible run of form into. I mean, I think the stat was if that form continued. I mean, we'll see if it continues this season. We're going to finish in the top 6, top 8. So, it was a brilliant end to last season.
Yeah, this season maybe not started in quite the same fashion. Just one draw so far in the Championship, 2 defeats. The draw, of course, coming at Middlesbrough the other day. I mean, what have you made to the start of the season? Maybe looks quite difficult on paper. The likes of Leicester and Plymouth, of course, riding the momentum wave that they're coming up from League One with, and that maybe not the easiest of fixtures. Middlesbrough never an easy place to go either. So, is it maybe just the fixtures that mirror the results, or is it just a case of that the performances haven't been there for Huddersfield Town?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, Adam. I think because we kind of touched on this on our last podcast. It's like your fixture list can really kind of almost make or break the way your season goes. It's a really tough start for us when you look at it. I mean, it's always hard going to a team who's just come up because they'll have that bounce, especially away. Unfortunately, we didn't kind of dampen the party atmosphere down there, and I think that cost us a little bit. And then, I mean, with the rest of the teams, including yourselves, it's like some really heavy hitters in the Championship. No offense to Norwich, but the way the things were going last season, Norwich was kind of one of the games when we looked at the fixtures, thought, well, if Wagner kind of doesn't pick it up a bit, it might be where we pick up as first win potentially. But the way you've got off, the start that Norwich have got off to, it's become even more difficult. But the football's actually been decent when you look at the stats. We're in the, and I'm not one of these XG kind of people. I don't really, because it's all about one stat, isn't it? The goals. But we're up there. I think we're in the top 8 for expected goals, which is such a breath of fresh air, weirdly, compared to the last few seasons. And it's hopefully it's just a little nudge to the people who sign the checks at Town, that if we can just bring someone in to maybe put these chances away, then we're going to be fine this year. I don't think we're going to be up there pushing for playoffs, but I just think it's, for once, we might have a boring season, because I think in the last 20 years, something like that, we've had 4 seasons where we haven't been in a playoff battle or a relegation battle.
Yeah, you just touched on it there, maybe sort of just hoping for a mediocre season. But what is the expectation, I suppose, amongst the Town fans? Do they all maybe share the same view, or is it just a case of survival again, or are you maybe more hopeful for that top 6 push?
I think anything in the top half would be a really good season for us. It's a big season because of the transition, new owner. I think they've done the sensible thing of kind of getting Warnock in for the year, because hopefully he will just stabilise us and kind of push on to next year. He's supposedly almost lined up as a bit of an advisor going into next year. They're gonna make sure he gives them that kind of idea of who they should get in next. So it sounds like they're doing everything quite sensibly. But also in the back of my mind, I think it's one of the hardest championship seasons to be doing this kind of thing. It's I think one thing that maybe has hindered us a bit this year is the fact that Warnock will only be here for a year, and it would be, I won't put it past him, but it should only be a year this year. I think it's hindered us in the sense that we haven't really signed long-term players, because maybe they're looking at it thinking, well, Warnock's going to be there next year. I don't want to commit to a club if I don't really know who I'm playing for.
Yeah, you just mentioned there the players you've potentially done in terms of the transfers in and out. The likes of Tom Edwards, who's quite experienced from Stoke, Chris Maxwell, a goalkeeper that many Championship fans will be aware of, and a lad from Mines. What have you made of the transfer business generally? Is it positive, or maybe is that element of Neil Warnock and the uncertainty probably a dampener on the business you've done?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we've had our new owner has said there should be 2 more signings coming in before the end of this window. Hopefully, one is a midfielder, because that's been our kind of real troubling position this year so far. I mean, there's such a big gap between Jonathan Hogg, who's extremely experienced, and then our next most experienced midfielder, who's probably David Kasumu, who's 23, I think. So, and he's only had 1 season of Championship football under his belt. So it's kind of a lot to ask in that position. And it showed in a few of these games where this midfield has got maybe a little bit bullied off the ball in times and not really worked really well out there. So, so far, Edwards, I really like the look of Edwards. I mean, Stoke fans were a bit iffy about him, but he reminds me a bit of Tommy Smith, who was great under Wagner when we got promoted. So he's just a good defender, which is quite rare as a fullback these days. So, yeah, I'm happy with that. I just think main thing is getting in a midfielder. This lad we brought in from Mainz, Burzorg, reminds me a bit of Van La Parra, who we had a few years ago. Very direct, runs at players. He came on for 15 minutes against Borough the other day, looked all right. So it'd be interesting to see if maybe he gets a shout to start on Saturday.
Yeah, you mentioned him a few times there. David Wagner, of course, well known around the parts of Huddersfield for pretty miraculous achievements that he has at that club. What sort of reaction do you think he'll get again on Saturday? Of course, he returned last season when the 1-1 draw on that pretty grim Tuesday night at the John Smiths. Do you think it'll be similar reaction on Saturday? You know, of course, a well-loved man, I suppose, from his time at the club.
Yeah, I think it'll be better, because that Tuesday night game was dead as well. I think it was probably one of our lowest attendances that season. It was almost, I think fans had given up at that point, and I mean that draw pretty much kickstarted the survival charge as well. So I think it'll be a good attendance. He'll get a good reception again. I mean, when I was doing the research for our podcast, looking at the Norwich backroom staff especially, it's almost a carbon copy of what we had when we got promoted. I mean, even bringing in Clem now, who, I think he made. I would think Huddersfield have good goalkeepers, but the last few years when Clem has been a coach, the goalkeepers have just spoke so highly of him about how good he is, and the way he changed Lee Nichols. Lee Nichols was a good keeper when he came, but he made him into, well, I think last season before, the best Championship goalkeeper. So that one, I'm gutted about that we kind of lost him, and I think it was inevitable that he was going to go to Norwich as soon as Town got him in. And then you've got Chico as well, which is another funny one. It's just like, don't know, because it's just funny. Stuart Webber as well doing tricks still at Norwich. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great reception. We all love David and Christoph as well. So yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, one man who I think knows the parts of Carrow Road in the Huddersfield Town squad, a man who's been linked away from what I can gather, Jordan Rose. Just intrigued to get sort of your thoughts on him as a player and how loved he is up at Huddersfield. I mean, I think his loan spell here, he's sort of a bit of a cult hero. Of course, played for Ipswich, came to Norwich, and done well a relatively successful job in a team that won the title. So is he sort of still loved, I suppose, up at the John Smiths?
Yeah, he is. I think people are a bit gutted, kind of. He's not a Warnock player, so he's not really getting a look in. I mean, when you're up against, as Warnock coins it, his son Danny Ward, you're never gonna kind of get a sniff in that team as the more experienced lad. And I think it's a disappointing thing for Town fans because I think we wanted to see him reach his 100th goal for Town, and I think he's only about 7 off it. And it's kind of like, if he got a full season under his belt, I'm sure he'd reach that target. So it sounds like he's going to go to Derby. I think they've been the heaviest link with him. And well, only a few more days left, so you never know. He might end up staying around and scoring a couple for us. But yeah, we love him as well. He is a legend, Huddersfield legend. It's been really nice for him to kind of come back, I think, and almost finish his career here.
Yeah, brilliant player, well loved down these parts too. Just gonna sort of now turn the attention towards the game on Saturday. Just intrigued to originally sort of get your thoughts on us and maybe where you pitch us in the championship this season. Of course, at the start of the campaign, I've seen sort of pundits and different podcasts put Norwich everywhere from top to bottom. Really, it's sort of a bit of, I suppose, a little bit of freedom on expectation maybe on us and where we're going to finish. But just intrigued to get your thoughts on where you think we'll end up at the end of the campaign.
I might make myself look like an idiot here, but I think, but you'll probably dig out and find I've put you at 21st. But I'm pretty sure in my season predictions, I thought Wagner would turn it around this year, and I think I had you in 8th. So I mean, it's paying off so far, my prediction. So there's just some of those players in your squad look absolutely awesome. Is it Sarah in the middle?
Sorry, yeah.
What a signing that is. And I just think I love God, I forgot his name, the American striker.
Josh Sargent, Sargent.
Sargent and Barnes. I think I really like Sargent because he just looks. I mean, he's a bit like a Barnes type of player. He's really strong, wins headers, really direct. So I just think what a kind of force in the championship that is up front. So it's going to be a good test. I look forward to kind of Matty Pearson and Hellick coming up against that because it's really nice that for once, given the last couple of years, I don't feel like our defence is just going to get pushed about by those kind of players anymore, which is quite good because I think we struggled with that in the last few seasons. It's going to be a tough test on Saturday, though. I think the way we'd kind of do well in the game is if kind of Sorba, Thomas, and Josh Koroma have a good game down the flanks. I mean, Sorba's deliveries started to really pick up again, and I think from set pieces, that's where we've looked as most dangerous, especially from corners. So, it's one of those. I think if we'd obviously do better, I think, when we get that early goal. So, hope for one of those on Saturday, Adam.
Yeah, who's going to be maybe the key man to get the early goals? Just intrigued to obviously lots of the championship experienced players in that side that I'm sure most Norwich fans will be aware of. You've already mentioned quite a few of them, the likes of Jonathan Hogg and Danny Ward. But maybe is there a standout player that's sort of underneath the surface that we should be aware of?
Well, we've got this young lad called Diarra who is French born. I think he's only just turned 20, maybe, but he's started every game now, centre attacking midfield, kind of playing that number 10 role, but given that freedom to push really far up the field. And I've been so impressed with him. I mean, he's come through the academy. He's probably been for about 5 years at Town now, and he's always been pipped to be that player. And this is kind of the first year where he's not looking out of place in the championship at all, and he's getting close. He hit the post against Borough the other week, so it'd be really nice to see him pick his first goal up. So I'd say you look out for him because he's quick, he's direct, he's got really good feet. He's just lacking. I mean, he's a little bit naive. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes that pass comes a bit too late, or he rushes it. But I mean, that's his age, and that's him. He needs to learn that. So I'd say look out for him. And then Jack Radone, we signed from Wimbledon last season. He's also stepping up. He looks bigger this year. He looks stronger. And the one thing that Town fans kind of moaned about last year was just his lack of goals, and he hasn't scored yet this year, but he just looks so much more dangerous. I think Warnock's given him a bit more of a license to kind of push on, get involved a bit more. So I'd say those two are probably the most likely scorers. But I think it's I mean, every club says it, don't they? You need a striker, and we can't be relying on Danny Ward to get us into hitting double figures. I don't think this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're quite lucky that Norwich have conceded quite a few goals already this season, so maybe there's going to be an opportunity for him. Just going to turn the attention finally round to the game, of course. I want to get a score prediction from you. Norwich unbeaten in the last 5 meetings between the two sides, but of course, as we know, anything can happen in the Championship. So, what's the score prediction from you, Tom?
I do think Town will win this one, just because, and I'm normally quite realistic with my score predictions, but I just think Warnock almost he just can beat David Wagner, I think, or at least can't lose to him. I remember when he was at Town and we came up against the Warnock side, it was just Wagner just seemed to struggle against it so much. So I'm almost putting all my eggs in the Warnock basket and just hoping that kind of gets us the win. So I think it'll be a close game, but I kind of can just see maybe a Town 2-1 win, and we need it. We need a win just to, because no one's panicking yet, but it'd just be good to get those 3 points just to calm everyone down a little bit. Because if you went, what would it be? Is it a 4th game, 5th game? You without a win, you're going to start to look at it and think, where's this win going to come from? So hoping for a 2-1. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever happens, I'm sure it'll be a good game. Really looking forward to it. And that will round off this week's Terrace Talk. Tom, really do appreciate your time this morning and giving some thoughts there on Huddersfield. Lots of great content coming your way across our channels. We'll, of course, be at David Wagner's press conference, the nice time of 4:30 tomorrow. So that will be available on the Pink and YouTube channel. All the usual previews and everything you need to know about the game will be up there. Of course, Team News Live at the John Smiths, 2 p.m. on Saturday afternoon. I'm really looking forward to it. Should be a good game. So keep it locked across our channels. Of course, head over to Tom's podcast to hear my thoughts as well on this one. And should be a good game. Thanks for joining us.